differs even according to each individual's work. But what joins us to become one person is the sweetness from the flavored drink Alleluia Jingati drink and Alleluia Tamarind drink. The flavor that quenches your thirst while at the same time treating and healing your body because it is 100% natural. Enjoy the drink that has got the tamarind juice in it. Made by Alleluia Reflexology, Healthy Solutions and Nutritional Research Center Limited. Get yourself a bottle of Alleluia from all shops around.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Well, look at us starting off another fresh week right here. Good morning, Uganda. Thank you for being with us at exactly about this time. Waking up as early as right about now. I must say it's not a piece of cake for very many of us. But when you do it, I mean, you are quite a special person. My name is Philomena Mastiko. It is the 27th of June, 2022. We are on a countdown to the end of this month as well, which ideally should be marking the first half of 2022, meaning we're left with about other 6 months to say bye-bye to 2022. I mean, it's quite very soon, you must say, but again, time flies by, so you would never notice. But questions that keep lingering in your mind is that what have I done for myself in this month, in this year? But hey, you still have time to make new decisions. It's never too late for change. It's never too late to catch up. Well, Good Morning Uganda starts off right about now. New week, new content, new information, new entertainment, and of course new inspiration for you. That is what we do. And in this morning I am joined by Robert, well, not Robert actually, because Robert is actually under the weather, but he'll be joining us very soon. But at least I do have Mollen Kenyena with me, and I must say it must have been a long weekend for her. I don't know, I don't want to speak for her. I need to hear from her. Good morning, Mollen.
Yes, a very good morning to you, Philomena, and of course I want to say good morning to you, our family. Well, long weekend, but guess what? It's over now. It looks like Monday isn't very far. There is always the way Monday is peeping, waiting for you. So at the end of the weekend, you just dive into a new week. But still, we're happy to be here and of course be ready to give you all the updates that you need.
Absolutely.
Talking about updates, Philomena, I was getting a story about the Ministry of Health.
Yes.
That is now looking into new research and backing the research focused mainly on psychiatry.
Ooh.
And they do believe that having psycho evaluations or having good mental health goes a long way into helping with treatment. So when you have science in play and giving all these medication to patients, you need to make sure that mentally they are fine.
Yes.
So they are calling on researchers to extend their scope into psychiatry and see how best they can make that as complement to the treatment that is given by science. And I think for me that is really something that researchers should be looking forward to, because it's quite key.
And yes, I really like that also, because at this very specific juncture, I think we need it. You remember just a few weeks ago when a report came out from the Ministry of Health, and they were talking about how very many Ugandans are actually not mentally okay. And I think that alone was one of the reasons as to why they've decided to put more focus and more engagement and more research in that field, because people are actually not doing well mentally.
People are not well.
They're
and
not really okay.
We have to accept that at one point, each one of us gets into a state where you feel like you're just not sane enough. There are always those episodes that as a human being, as a human body, you reach an extent and you're like mentally everything is just coming to you. It's either sickness around or, you know, loss or something. And it's key to actually have mental awareness as well. But I do think that in this country, I don't know whether people are aware that we have therapists.
Yes.
Everyone should be able to access therapy at a certain point. People are not doing well. And when I was looking at that statistics from Ministry of Health saying a big number of Ugandans are actually mentally not okay, I was like, yeah, this could be actually something that we look into as reality.
True,
and call for people to actually be going for therapy, be going for counseling. We shouldn't take this as, you know, people have quoted it as this is a white people thing.
They have stereotyped it, and they believe
black
that
people
these are
don't
white
believe in
people
therapy.
diseases. But I mean, a lot has been happening, especially when we went through COVID-19. The 2 years, I must say, we were not really doing much, but we're not really doing so well even before COVID-19. But when COVID-19 joined in the queue of the issues that we're facing, I must say that, well, it escalated the problem. So you need to go and see a therapy if you can, a therapist if you can. You undergo through a session to make sure you're doing fine. Mental health is very key, but if it's not doing well for you, clearly then you need to think about very many other things. Well, I must say that over the weekend, Mollen, His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, of course, as we know, he traveled by road when he was headed to Rwanda, you know, for the Choga meeting, but also when he was returning, he did make a stopover around the border, and he was talking to the people of Kabale, and you know, he was passing out quite some very essential information, and he actually asked them to stop smuggling goods into Rwanda, because at this very point the borders are fully open, and he believes that, listen, if you don't put the border post to use, you want to drive us into another difficult situation. I know we've been through it, and clearly the people, especially the people around there, they know the implications of Rwanda closing the border. But even we as a country, Uganda, we felt the pinch. So he was asking the Batuze of Kabale, please, and please stop smuggling goods into Rwanda. Do things the right way. I don't know why we have an issue as Ugandans doing things the right way. We always want to look for a shortcut, plan B, plan C. Come on.
And at this point, we have really established a good relationship with Rwanda again. Trade has been going on really well. Wouldn't want to actually put back what was there before. I think at this point, we really need to observe that kind of discipline. And I think the president calling upon Batuze to do that was a good call, because you look into the fact that these are the people that are always using the borders. And it's important for them to actually put into consideration where the system that has been put there, the procedure that has been put there, so that we ensure that we are, you know, we are all really doing well with that. But talking about Chogam, one thing that really took my interest, and I think it's kind of obvious, is the fact that they were fronting climate change. I looked at what the statement from the End of the World Leaders meeting, and what they were talking about is calling upon all leaders to actually give their 100% support when it comes to climate action. And of course, much of that effort was towards Egypt, the climate change conference that is upcoming, that will be taking in a lot more countries as well. But it's important that leaders understand that this should be their key priority right now. Just the same way we actually attacked COVID-19 as a pandemic, and we saw presidents coming up to give, you know, to address the nation, giving a way forward, is the same way they should be addressing climate change. Let them give a way forward, and I think that was really good message coming through, and that's how we get climate change on the political agenda. Indeed.
Well, Chogam came to an end, but there were very many issues that were fronted, Mollen, I must say. Apart from climate change, we did see also the states, the well-to-do states that are part of the Chogam being put under the spotlight. They have failed to help the developing states. They've failed to help the states that are really doing badly, and they are the least on the, I mean, the last on the list, if I put it that way. And they were saying, and unfortunately, the biggest percentage of the countries that make up Chogam are countries that are still developing. And I really love the fact that all these countries that are doing quite well or better than the others were put under the spotlight and asked, why are you not coming in handy? Why are you not helping your fellow states? Because clearly that doesn't look well on you. And they even did talk about countries that are among the G7, talking about like countries like Australia. You're doing quite well. Why are you not helping doing, this is like having bigger siblings who are doing well. You know, they are, I mean, they are doing well financially, economically, and then they have these young siblings who are not in school, who are not, you know, and you're not doing anything, you're not providing when you have the capacity and the capability to do so. So indeed, I could say that CHOGM is like the big mom and the big dad, and then these other countries are out there not helping, clearly.
They just say they are concerned, and I hate that whole quote of "we are concerned about this issue," because I saw
do something about the
I saw the UK
concernment.
Prime Minister Boris Johnson calling them on, and then I think a lot of what was coming across is that we are concerned, especially when they were talking about the Pacific Islands that have been worst hit in the past decade, that are continuously needing help, and the only statement that always comes through is that we are concerned. Concern is not enough when you're not acting towards making sure that these Pacific Islands are actually doing better, or even, like you say, developing countries.
Yes.
So I think that was really a good message also to come through from CHOGM. We should be taking away from that.
Well, another thing that really beat me, especially about CHOGM, you remember the country Zimbabwe was thrown out, I think about 17 or 18 years ago, after they were put on the spotlight for failing to heed to the human rights when they were still under the rule of the late President Mugabe. Well, I must say that they did send in an application. They wanted to be admitted back into CHOGM. This was back in 2018, and I must say right now they are actually putting in more energy, putting in more pressure, because they want to be admitted back into CHOGM. Clearly, probably they've seen the benefits of being in CHOGM, or they understood where they had gone wrong. Only my prayer is that they understood why they were thrown out, and they have come back again to make sure they do listen into the human rights and do what they're supposed to, because it won't make sense if you're admitted back into CHOGM after being thrown out for the same reason. So I hope, you know, they can consider, and I hope it goes well for you. 2018 was when they did send in the application, yes. So I hope they listen to them and then make the necessary changes. Otherwise, you could be thrown out again the second time. I don't know how that would look on you as a country.
Because there are a lot of benefits actually with being in CHOGM, and obviously that interaction and of course help from each other country, especially we're talking about developed countries, I think is something that they should be looking forward to. But talking about human rights as well, yesterday we were commemorating about you know, international human rights, and one message that I saw that was making headlines around is the fact that are these human rights really observed, or is it on paper? Because there's been a lot of protocols that are signed, you know, on international human rights law, anything against human rights, but are all these protocols really followed? And in this country, I think we have seen mostly against torture. When we talk about torture, we've seen that this has been a continuous act, but how far has it gone into making it to courts of law, and are people getting justice? Or even if they're not, after getting justice, are they getting the compensation that is really needed to get them back into the population that is after torture? Of course, that is something that is still ongoing, and I know that a lot has been done in terms of making sure that we have human rights preserved everywhere, but I think there is still a lot of work needed there. Absolutely.
We have had quite a number of conversations about human rights, but also we have a lot of pending things to do, strategies to lay to make sure that these are observed, and especially when it comes to torture, we need to get rid of it 100%, not only in Uganda but very many other countries. Well, very many stories flowing in, flowing out. I must tell you, the weekend was quite a busy one, especially when it comes to news, but if you did miss yesterday's bulletin, definitely we are here to make sure you catch up. It's a Monday, so it would be very courteous of us to let you know what's happening in your country. You know, you start off the week knowing how you're going to go about it, what is happening around you. That is very key for you on a Monday like this. We'll start off with some of the stories, of course, here at home and outside the Ugandan borders, the African borders. Mollen.
Well, we start off with the Vice President, retired Major Jessica Alupo, where she was commissioning a pass out of a total of 2,184 student patriots from 17 secondary schools and tertiary institutions in Katakwi district. While passing out the students' corps, the Vice President Alupo called upon students and the general community to love their country and be ready to work for it. In another story, the Presidential Chief Executive Office Forum has toured Sino Uganda Industrial Park, Mbale, to ascertain its performance and progress. Now seated on 618 acres of land with 23 factories, over 2,000 jobs have been created, hence reducing unemployment challenge in Mbale region. The government has embarked on industrialization policy for development and also bridge on the unemployed gap. This has prompted the Presidential Chief Executive Officer Forum to pay a courtesy visit to Sino Industry Park in Mbale to ascertain progress and also do research and advocacy to bridge the gap between government and private sector. The CEO Sino Uganda Industrial Park Mbale lauded the Presidential CEO's Forum for initiative and pledged to work handy with government for development. Provision of technical skills was, however, cited as eminent following the increasing number of factories in the country. Away from that, President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni has directed the Finance Minister to secure a loan to facilitate the construction of storage silos at all parishes across the country. Now, this has been revealed by the State Minister for Trade, Industry and Cooperatives, David Bahati, during a joint parish development model talk show for Kigezi held in Kabale district. Ministers hailing from Kigezi sub-region are busy mobilizing communities to embrace government programs. Now, this weekend, the 5 ministers gathered at Kabale National Teachers College in Kabale district to communicate to the entire sub-region. The joint radio talk show for parish development model was aimed at creating public awareness, mobilize and sensitize Kigezi communities about the parish development model and related programs. Now, the 4-hour talk show featured Security Minister Major General Jim Muhwezi, ICT Minister Dr. Chris Baryomonsi, State Minister for Trade and Cooperatives David Bahati, and State Minister for Children Affairs Sarah Mateke. And in another story, there has been a lot of improvement registered in the education system and provision of adequate learning information to learners sprouting from the partnership between World Bank and Government of Uganda that birthed Life to projects which will target government-aided seed secondary schools in the 18 regions of Uganda. Government plans to construct more seed secondary schools as part of its efforts to ensure that all sub-counties across the country have a seed school, making a total of 259 for this particular project. The construction of the schools under the Intergovernmental Physio Transfer Program is being handled in the 3 phases. So far, government has built 117 seed schools across the country in the first phase, and plans for another 115 schools in the second phase are underway, as well as more 27 in the third phase to enable every student to access secondary education within their locality. In addition, government has also taken measures such as revising policies to promote diversity, skills and provision of comprehensive education to enhance competitiveness of children to cope with the global environment. School managements and leadership in these districts need to ensure that the students are not overcharged, since seed schools are meant to give a lease of life to children from humble backgrounds.
Well, in the international stories, we start off with Colombia. 4 killed after stand collapses during bullfight. Now, at least 4 people have been killed and scores more were injured after a stand collapsed during a bullfight in central Colombia. Footage has emerged showing the 3-story wooden stand filled with spectators falling at a stadium in El Espinal, Tolima department. The traditional Corraleja event involved members of the public entering the ring to engage the bulls. President-elect Gustavo Petro urged local officials to ban such events. I asked mayors not to allow more events involving the death of people or animals, he said. It was not the first time such an accident had happened, he added. The dead included 2 women, a man and a child, Tolima Governor Jose Ricardo Orozco said, and at least 30 people were seriously injured. There are fears that the death toll will rise further. A bull also escaped from the stadium and caused panic in the municipality. Local Councillor Ivan Ferney Rogers said the town's hospital and ambulance services were unable to cope with the number of injured, El Tiempo newspaper reports. We need support from ambulances and neighboring hospitals. Many people are still unattended to, Mr. Rogers is quoted as saying. Sunday's event was part of celebrations of the popular San Pedro Festival. And moving on to the Ukraine war, dozens of Russian missiles have struck targets across Ukraine, with the capital, Kyiv, enduring the heaviest barrage in months. A Kyiv apartment block was destroyed, killing at least one and wounding 6 others, including a 7-year-old girl. Ukraine says 14 missiles were fired at the Kyiv region on Sunday, but the strikes extended far beyond the city. Other areas included the central city of Shekarsky, where 1 person died, and the northeastern Kharkiv region. The strikes came as leaders of the G7 group of the world's richest nations began a 3-day summit in Bavaria, southern Germany, with the war in Ukraine top of the agenda. They are expected to promise further military support for Kyiv and impose more sanctions on Moscow. We have to stay together, US President Joe Biden told Germany's Chancellor Olaf Scholz just before the summit at Schloss Elmau. Russian President Vladimir Putin has been counting on it from the beginning that somehow NATO would and the G7 would splinter, but they haven't, and they're not going to. Now on the African continent, switching to South Africa, South African authorities are investigating the deaths of at least 22 people in a nightclub. The victims were found strewn across floors and tables, the Inyobeni Tavern in the coastal town of East London. The bodies were taken to mortuaries where post-mortem examinations, including toxicology tests, will seek to establish a cause of death. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa expressed his deepest condolences to families of the victims. This tragedy is made even more grave by its occurrence during Youth Month, a time during which we advocate and advance opportunities for improved socio-economic conditions for the youth of our nation, he said in a tweet. Oscar Mabuyane, Premier of East Cape Province, where the tragedy happened, did not give possible reasons for the deaths, but condemned the unlimited consumption of liquor. Speaking at the scene, he said, "You can't just tread in the middle of society like this and think that young people are not going to experiment."
The weather and climate news. Commonwealth ends summit with a call for action on climate change and trade. Now, the newly expanded Commonwealth made broad commitments on Saturday to address climate change and boost trade, now concluding a summit aimed at shoring up the relevance of a group that evolved from the British Empire. The newly expanded Commonwealth made broad commitments to address climate change and also boost trade. Now, the club, whose 56 members range from India to the tiny Pacific island nations of Nauru, covers some 2.5 billion people, or about 1/3 of the world's population. It presents itself as a network for cooperation, although critics say that there needs to carve out a more concrete role and be less of a talking shop. The 2-long summit in Rwanda's capital, Kigali, included comments from Britain's Prince Charles, expressing sorrow for his country's role in the transatlantic slave trade, which is the first time the Commonwealth has publicly addressed the subject.
Well, when it comes to the morning conversations, definitely we do expect your feedback. And today being the 27th of June 2022, it's actually not any usual day. It's the International Day Against Drug Use and Illicit Trafficking. Now, in the last couple of days, we've been seeing drug usage, especially amongst Ugandan schools, on a rise. And I must tell you, reports are coming out and they're not exactly making very many of us happy. And this morning, we want to find out from you, how best can we fight the growing drug usage and abuse amongst Ugandans? How best can we fight the growing drug usage and abuse amongst Ugandans? Definitely send us your feedback on our Twitter. The hashtag is UBCGMU, and let us know. You may as well send us a WhatsApp message and, of course, an SMS text. Definitely we'll be happy to receive all your feedback, your thoughts, your suggestions, because as a society, this is our problem that we need to resolve by ourselves. Anyone can be hurt when it comes to drug usage, and especially the illegal drugs. Well, do come in with your 2 cents. We'll be sharing it with the rest of our community as we go on here on Good Morning Uganda. But also, we cannot go away without telling you some good news or helping you, especially when it comes to boosting your health. And this morning, I must say that Mollen is taking over the gospel. I would really want to know what she has to say.
Well, I'll say one thing. It's no secret that COVID-19 is back. And of course, we're seeing new cases each time. But also, I want us to relate to the prices of treatments. That pandemic that almost took everyone in, the prices were really high. Now, you cannot afford to be spending all that. What you can do right now is make sure that your body is good enough to handle anything. And of course, we're talking about boosting your immune system. You can do that by getting yourself products of Alleluia. We have Alleluia ginger tea drink and of course Alleluia tamarind drink. When you have these in your daily routine, making sure that at least you take a bottle once or twice a day, you at least be in a good state to handle anything. Your body can eventually take on any disease, and that's why we're saying and encouraging you to get yourself a bottle of Alleluia.
You know what, it's very funny how a Ugandan would actually spend about 350,000 on medication when they could have avoided all these costs just with 1,500. So what we are saying is prioritize your health. Do not wait to get to the limits for you to start thinking about it, and thoughts run along like, I wish I had taken that Alleluia. It's not treatment, but it helps to boost your health, especially now that we're seeing the COVID-19 statistics go higher than we want them to. So grab that bottle and make sure you are ready for any attack against your body. It's a Monday, it's a new week. Definitely it comes with a lot of new things, or if you had pending activities or responsibilities, Monday is the day for you to pick up where you left on Friday. So we want to let you know that we are here to inspire you. We give you the inspiration that you need to make sure you're ready to kick the day right from the start. We do that through our inspirational song that will be coming up just in a few minutes. And of course, after that, we'll be having the Good Morning Uganda newsreel. Now, we'll be talking about more, especially when it comes to the illegal drug usage, especially amongst Ugandan schools, and the illicit trafficking. What are we doing as a country? Have we gone wrong? How did we get here? All these conversations we'll be having, of course, between myself and Mollen in the next hour. Do not forget, I'll be bringing you the traffic updates, and Mollen will also be giving you more from the climate arena and the weather forecast. Not forgetting the press review, what's making headlines, New Vision, Daily Monitor, and of course the Daily Nation. And the GMU agenda is also queued up, so do not miss out on that very interesting interview we'll be having. Good Morning Uganda returns shortly after this break.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala.
Well, look at us starting off another fresh week right here. Good morning, Uganda. Thank you for being with us at exactly about this time. Waking up as early as right about now. I must say it's not a piece of cake for very many of us, but when you do it, I mean, you are quite a special person. My name is Philomena. Mastiko. It is the 27th of June, 2022. We are on a countdown to the end of this month as well, which ideally should be marking the first half of 2022, meaning we're left with about other 6 months to say bye-bye to 2022. I mean, it's quite very soon, you must say, but again, time flies by, so you would never notice. But questions that keep lingering in your mind is that, what have I done for myself in this month, in this year? But hey, you still have time to make new decisions. It's never too late for change. It's never too late to catch up. Well, Good Morning Uganda starts off right about now. New week, new content, new information, new entertainment, and of course, new inspiration for you. That is what we do. And in this morning, I am joined by Robert, well, not Robert actually, because Robert is actually under the weather. but he'll be joining us very soon. But at least I do have Mollen Kenyena with me, and I must say it must have been a long weekend for her. I don't know. I don't want to speak for her. I need to hear from her. Good morning, Mollen.
Yes, a very good morning to you, Philomena, and of course I want to say good morning to you, our family. Well, long weekend, but guess what? It's over now. It looks like Monday isn't very far. There is always the way Monday is peeping, waiting for you. So at the end of the weekend, you just dive into a new week. But still, we're happy to be here and of course be ready to give you all the updates that you need.
Absolutely.
Talking about updates, Philomena, I was getting a story about the Ministry of Health.
Yes.
That is now looking into new research and backing the research focused mainly on psychiatry.
Ooh.
And they do believe that having psycho-evaluations or having good mental health goes a long way into helping with treatment. So when you have science in play and giving all these medications to patients, you need to make sure that mentally they are fine.
Yes.
So they are calling on researchers to extend their scope into psychiatry and see how best they can make that as complement to the treatment that is given by science. And I think for me that is really something that researchers should be looking forward to, because it's quite key.
And yes, I really like that also, because at this very specific juncture I think we need it. You remember just a few weeks ago when a report came out from the Ministry of Health, they were talking about how very many Ugandans are actually not mentally okay, and I think that alone was one of the reasons as to why they've decided to put more focus and more engagement and more research in that field, because people are actually not doing well mentally.
People are not well.
They're
and
not really okay.
We have to accept that at one point each one of us gets into a state where you feel like you're just not sane enough. There are always those episodes that as a human being, as a human body, you reach an extent and you're like mentally everything is just coming to you. It's either sickness around or loss or something, and it's key to actually have mental awareness as well. But I do think that in this country, I don't know whether people are aware that we have therapists. Yes, everyone should be able to access therapy at a certain point. People are not doing well, and when I was looking at that statistics from Ministry of Health saying a big number of Ugandans are actually mentally not okay, I was like, this could be actually something that we look into as reality. True, and call for people to actually be going for therapy, be going for counseling. We shouldn't take this as, people have quoted it as this is a white people thing.
They have stereotyped it, and they believe that these are white people diseases. But I mean, a lot has been happening, especially when we went through COVID-19. The 2 years, I must say, we were not really doing much, but we're not really doing so well even before COVID-19. But when COVID-19 joined in the queue of the issues that we're facing, I must say that, it escalated the problem. So you need to go and see a therapy if you can, a therapist if you can. You undergo through a session to make sure you're doing fine. Mental health is very key, but if it's not doing well for you, clearly then you need to think about very many other things. Well, I must say that over the weekend, Mollen, His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, of course, as we know, he traveled by road when he was headed to Rwanda, for the Choga meeting, but also when he was returning, he did make a stopover around the border, and he was talking to the people of Kabale, and he was passing out quite some very essential information, and he actually asked them to stop smuggling goods into Rwanda, because at this very point the borders are fully open, and he believes that, listen, if you don't put the border post to use, you want to drive us into another difficult situation. I know we've been through it, and clearly the people, especially the people around there, they know the implications of Rwanda closing the border. But even we as a country, Uganda, we felt the pinch. So he was asking the Batuze of Kabale, please stop smuggling goods into Rwanda. Do things the right way. I don't know why we have an issue as Ugandans doing things the right way. We always want to look for a shortcut, plan B, plan C. Come on.
And at this point, we have really established a good relationship with Rwanda again. Trade has been going on really well. Wouldn't want to actually put back what was there before. I think at this point, we really need to observe that kind of discipline. And I think the president calling upon Batuze to do that was a good call, because you look into the fact that these are the people that are always using the borders. And it's important for them to actually put into consideration where the system that has been put there, the procedure that has been put there, so that we ensure that we are, we are all really doing well with that. But talking about Chogam, one thing that really took my interest, and I think it's kind of obvious, is the fact that they were fronting climate change. I looked at what the statement from the End of the World Leaders Meeting, and what they were talking about is calling upon all leaders to actually give their 100% support when it comes to climate action. And of course, much of that effort was towards Egypt, the climate change conference that is upcoming, that will be taking in a lot more countries as well. But it's important that leaders understand that this should be their key priority right now. Just the same way we actually attacked COVID-19 as
Yes.
a pandemic, and we saw presidents coming up to give, to address the nation, giving a way forward, is the same way they should be addressing climate change. Let them give a way forward, and I think that was really good message coming through, and that's how we get climate change on the political agenda.
Indeed. Well, CHOGM came to an end, but there were very many issues that were fronted, Mollen, I must say. Apart from climate change, we did see also the states, the well-to-do states that are part of the CHOGM being put under the spotlight. They have failed to help the developing states. They've failed to help the states that are really doing badly, and they are the least on the, the last on the list, if I put it that way. And they were saying, and unfortunately, the biggest percentage of the countries that make up CHOGM are countries that are still developing. And I really love the fact that all these countries that are doing quite well or better than the others were put under the spotlight and asked, why are you not coming in handy? Why are you not helping your fellow states? Because clearly that doesn't look well on you. And they even did talk about countries that are, as you have switched on your TV, or if you've been with us, well, thank you for sticking it all through till about now. Well, welcome to this segment where we have a topical discussion of the day with me, Philomena Mastiko, and of course I'm in the company of Mollen, Kenyena. This morning we want to center our discussion especially on the illegal drug usage that is really on such a growing curve, especially here in Uganda, and also looking at our education institutions. But before we get into that, we would love to find out from you on our morning poll question: how best can we fight the growing drug usage and abuse among us Ugandans? How best can we fight the growing drug usage and abuse among us Ugandans? Now, today, the 27th of June 2022, it's actually International Day against drug abuse and illegal or illicit trafficking. Now, this day was put aside by the United Nations to recognize this problem that happens quite a lot in our societies, to make sure we lay forward strategies that we can use to tackle it right from the roots, and also to draw more campaigns against drug usage. In the last couple of days, I must say that reports have been coming out, and we even saw the police itself, especially from the spokesperson, Fred Enanga, come out to announce that this is happening especially among school-going children. They made quite a list of people that are producing all these products, cookies, biscuits, and all these actually have drugs in them. And the biggest percentage of consumers was actually highlighted to be school-going children, and aged from the right about 13 to 20. And they were talking about this being the biggest number of people consuming these products. But again, if you look at it, that is not the only way all these drugs are consumed. We have children in school, we have people in our societies taking drugs, and among us the drugs that have been listed, we do have Mairunji, we do have heroin, we do have cigarettes, we do have marijuana, we do have cocaine on the list, we also have alcohol. Now, just in case you never knew that alcohol is a drug, it actually is. Now, all these are being taken in very, very conspicuous ways, and in also such large amounts. Definitely, you know that this is quite dangerous to you as a person, as an individual. We've had warnings coming in from the Ministry of Health, from counselors, from anybody concerned. But the main question right now would be, how did we get here? What's the cause of all this? Now, Mollen, I must say that there is quite a number of blame game that is being put, especially either on the parents or on society or on the school administrators, especially if we are going to focus on the children in school, because people believe as a parent you are supposed to be in primary control of your child. But also people believe that, well, listen, society has a lot of responsibility. The people that surround our children, the communities we live in, especially when we look at areas like Katanga, I mean, we know that in most of these areas we have quite a large number of people using these drugs. But then another sector of people believe that our children spend quite a lot of time in school. So the administrators and other people are responsible, should be able to make sure these problems don't happen. So what are we looking at? What could be the possible causes? And I mean, amongst the three, who do you think could be taking the biggest, share of the responsibility? Or maybe this is a problem that is amongst the three parties.
Well, I would put it right clearly like that. It has to be a shared problem.
Yes.
Because if you look at drug abuse and when we have children involved, then all three parties are involved actually. But I want to focus and mainly is on family.
Yes.
Because a lot of kids take up from what they see at home. So family is one thing that has caused this. As long as you have a family history of substance use in your family, you're going to pick up on that. Now kids grow up, if a kid were to grow up seeing their father smoke cigarettes, their father take marijuana or do any drugs, they would think it's okay. To them it's a normal thing. I've seen my parents do this, so it should be normal.
Yes.
And as parents, you have to understand that we are the role models of these kids. So the moment that you are using drugs and you let your kids see that, they're going to think this is something that is okay. After all, my father, who is my role model, my mother, who is my role model, is doing the same. So that has been a biggest contribution towards drug abuse by kids. And schools, of course, will have to take responsibility at a certain point.
Yes.
But family is important because these kids grow up from your hands and they're seeing you do this. And of course, we want to take out the influence of the peer pressure, actually. When you talk about peer pressure, it's not just in schools, even in their communities around them. And like you mentioned in Katanga, if a child has grown up around such areas where in their communities they're seeing small groups of people doing drugs, they will think, no, this is an act that is okay.
There is no way you're going to convince this child that it's not right.
Yeah, because they'll be like, in my community, there are guys that are always seated and they're taking marijuana, they're taking...
They seem to be happy all the time. And
taking beers, they are okay. And once in a while, you see the funny thing with such groups is once in a while, they actually involve these kids because they're going to call them, send them for something.
Yes.
Hey, can you buy for me a beer from the shop? Can you buy for me this? So they think it's something normal. And that is the community kind of peer pressure that is around it. But also in schools, if there are a group of students, and usually actually the students that are doing drugs are the popular ones.
Yes.
Now there is a popular group of guys that, they are doing drugs. And you as a young lad who is trying to also be popular in school, trying to get into good circles.
You want to do what the popular kids are doing.
Exactly. You're forced to join them because you want to also be recognized to be among the popular kids.
Yes.
And that's a kind of peer pressure. Also, that feeling of wanting to belong, it creates that environment where kids are then tempted to get into the act. But also, we're talking about schools, of course, we bring in education.
Yes.
And we can't take out the fact that there is stress around education. Now, students will be in school, of course, there is studying, of course, there is exams, and that kind of stress that comes with it will prompt students into getting into drug use. They will be, thinking, okay, if I cannot deal with this, I'm failing at every subject. Now, they have that kind of depression that comes with it that is going to force them into doing drugs. And that is where I think schools should be focusing mostly. How do you address failure? When students are failing, or there is this particular student who is having a hard time into passing their exams, how do you address them? Are you encouraging them to actually not feel bad about themselves so that they are not prompted to actually go into drug use? That is also one thing that is of course contributing to that, but also poor monitoring from schools.
Yes.
Now, as schools, you have responsibilities over these kids, because once for us parents we give them to you, now we expect you to take it from there, which means that part of your school activities should also include counseling.
Yes.
Should also include various, medics coming in to actually advise or tell these kids the importance of being sober in school.
Yes.
And also the effects of using drugs. Because most kids will actually go into drugs not knowing the effects.
Yes.
This comes later and they're now regretting
they actually
that,
think
I wish
about
I didn't.
the immediate effects because they know you're probably, it's cool, like they want to say, or probably it will help you get rid of the pressure, the tension, the anxiety, like you did talk about, how you're in tension because you have these papers coming up or you have a hard situation. So they don't really think about the effects. Those come in when they're going through them.
So once you have a professional come in as a school, school and they are teaching these kids, look, using drugs will bring this in, it will be, you know, a long-term effect.
Yes.
And maybe you're looking at this as, you know, just a short-time thing or solution, but this is what it is going to do to you. And as kids, because you're still learning, in school you're learning, every information that comes in is you growing up. And I'm sure they will take that information, because I have seen a lot of scenarios where kids reach an extent and they're actually regretting it.
Yes.
Or if you have had testimonies from drug addicts, all they're saying is that, I wish there was someone to tell me about what this could do. And I'll tell you one example of a story as getting from, I think, the story of this musician who was addicted to drugs.
Yes.
Cute Kaye. In his story, he says, when he first got to take the drugs, and of course that was influence from his friends, he actually thought it was okay. But now later, 24, 48 hours later, he got sick. And when he got sick, he almost died. He reached an extent of almost dying. And when he called his friends and he was like, what is happening to me? After I took this drug, I feel like I'm dying. He was getting blood throughout his nose.
Yes.
And his friends advised him, you know what you need to do now is take more. He's like, no, I would rather go to the hospital.
Yes.
But then they were like, take more. So when he took more, he got better. Completely, 100%. And that's when he realized, oh my God, now I am addicted.
Yes, there is a problem.
This is a problem, because I'm going to depend on taking more of this drug for me to get better.
Yes.
And that, of course, took his mental state in a different way, because he realized there is no going back. Well, and these are the kind of stories that should be told to students.
Yes.
These are the kind of, you know, instructions that should be given to students to know what they are looking at. And I know we will avoid that.
Yes.
And of course, there is also that mentorship that should be coming forward from both the school administration as well as parents.
That's true.
As parents, you're supposed to be mentoring your kids into making sure that they are aware of this. But parents often shy away from advising their children. They feel like this is a responsibility of the school. The school has a lot of responsibilities, including teaching your kids, making sure they pass. So if you leave little details on such huge decisions,
yes,
then you're going to mess up. And I think kids deserve to know this. Otherwise, I don't think there is a kid out there who really wants to do drugs.
We cannot keep away this information from them. Now, it's very interesting that you talk about the education institutions, our schools. Even for schools, actually, it's very sad when you look at most of these church schools. I mean, we know that these traditional schools, they're known for being very tough and very strict. You know, it's very hard for them to relay from the moral compass. But even when you find reports like this coming in from traditional schools, somebody would believe that there is a lot of permissiveness that has come through when it comes to schools, even among us parents. But on the side of the schools, schools have become less strict. They have started focusing majorly on education. They want to see the numbers go up. They want to see the grades going up. And all they want is to commercialize that and have very many people coming in. But they're forgetting the whole story behind that. You know, it's not just about results. It's not all about academics, because the children are in your hands. So definitely anything about this child, their health, their mental stability, their academic, everything is definitely part of your administration. So yes, there are certain people who believe that there is a lot of permissiveness among the schools, and especially to the administration. They have shifted their focus onto some of the vital aspects about a child, onto the most aspects that definitely bring in the cash. But when you also look on the side of parents, we have become very permissive. Right now, there is a parent out there who doesn't know what happens in a day of their child. Now, this was very evident during COVID-19. There are very many revelations that were made to parents. They do not know their children know a lot of things. Okay, but they had time. They were forcefully made to have time with their children because of COVID-19. And indeed, like how they say that every cloud has a silver lining. I think this is one, if not the biggest advantage we had that COVID-19 brought in.
It did open our eyes.
Yes, it did open our eyes as parents. You sit down with your child and they tell you things. Some of them could be very interesting. Others will definitely shock you, and you're wondering how a child of this age knows this and that. And if you do not know, if you don't accustom yourself to your child, you don't know what goes through their lives, you don't know what they are up to, you let your children go up and about. I will tell you, Mollen, there is no way I would leave my home to go and meet up with friends or do anything during our times. But right now, you see children go out there, they're not in any, they're not under any kind of supervision. And I believe that during all these meetups with their friends and whatnot, whatnot, they are open up to some of these things. Drug usage, your friend will tell you, try it, it will not have any problem with you. So yes, I do believe it when people say that as parents, they've also become very permissive. But also, looking at the media, we also have quite a role that we have played in this. We've also become a bit permissive. We have normalized that content that involves drug usage. Of course, there are certain media houses that are still very strict and they follow through their code of conduct and ethics, and they know it's just wrong. But if you look at the content that is exposed to these children, it may not even necessarily be on TVs, but children right now access gadgets. They access YouTube, they access all these social media apps. I mean, they will see all this drug usage, and definitely by nature, children are very, very curious
and
inquisitive.
Like the music videos that actually have musicians, you know, sipping on most of these drugs, this shisha and all that. They smoke everywhere.
Yes.
So they can, you watch this music, and of course they will think, okay, this is a famous person, this is a celebrity, they are doing drugs in their videos. This is a cool thing to do.
Absolutely.
And that's how, you know, media has brought in a lot of exposure to drug abuse, and I think that is one thing that kids have taken up, because they would want to relate, they would also want to be as cool as, you know, the famous people. And that is where the problem comes in, because the moment we do not regulate that, the moment we don't have that content regulation, and I think that's where government should be coming in to regulate most of this, especially now that we're seeing rising cases, because at schools they are not going to check every toothpaste that comes through, because now we are told that
they'll grab all the cookies and whatnot.
Exactly. It's very hard to detect most of these unless now government institutions are coming up with clear protocol on how to do that, or procedure on how to do that, to make sure that there is also you know, that kind of regulation. But also you need to cut off the source.
Yes.
Because right now the exposure of drugs is out there in the open. There are a lot of places that you can get drugs.
People know their people.
Exactly.
Yes,
and I don't think this was there in the past. I don't think growing up I knew that there were drugs, but now people know where these things are.
Yes.
And that's the kind of source that also government should be coming in to cut it off. And the moment we actually find the problem from that angle, we might even be looking into a better whatever play. But while we're still on the topic, Philomena, bringing in family as well, and me, I want to concentrate mostly on that. There has been issues of broken homes recently. We find, yes, single parents raising kids, but also rejection has come along. Because this child is being, you know, raised by a mother or a father, they will feel like they're rejected by the other person. And that kind of rejection will send a child into some kind of way, mental status of rejection, and they always turn to drugs. Most of them will turn to drugs to fill the gap. Now I'm only living with my mom, after all my dad doesn't pay attention, they don't even love me. They feel like they are unloved. And this is a big question mark that is there, that people should be paying attention to. Parents, the moment you father a child, the moment you mother a child, you should know that your love towards them will influence a lot in their lives. The moment you take that away, you're forcing them into some of these things. And you're going to regret it later when you see them as addicts, when you see them in jail having done things out of the influence of them being under drugs. And I think that is where we need to now evaluate ourselves as human beings who are mentoring these people to be here. That means that your influence towards them should be to make sure that they actually grab the best information, not just because of their rejection. They are now being forced into most of these acts.
Yes. Well, we're talking about the growing crisis of drug abuse in schools, and of course this is in line of the International Day against drug abuse and illicit trafficking. And of course also in our poll question, relatively, we do ask how best can we fight the growing drug usage and abuse amongst Ugandans? How best can we fight the growing drug usage and abuse amongst Ugandans? Hashtag UBCGMU, and you can send us a WhatsApp message on 0709 602 592, or even use the same number to give us an SMS text or send us an SMS text. We'll definitely be able to see that. Now, of course, as we are talking about this drug abuse in schools that is really spiraling, it's very sad and unfortunate. We are looking at the causes, but then, of course, there are implications, there are effects to this, Mollen. Definitely, of course, to your health as a person. We have seen very many people. I've seen very many young people on the streets, and it's really sad because you're wondering what is happening. When you look at the rehabilitation centers in Uganda, we don't really have many, but the numbers that are out there, it's really, really sad. I've seen people in society, people I know, people I mean, people I don't really know on a personal level, and I must tell you the effects don't really look good on them. But also looking at that, we need to also look at what can be done. Now, I love the fact that you talked about governments playing to these. Recently, we saw government say that they will arrest people, you know, caught getting using shisha. Now, shisha is quite among us the biggest things that, or drugs that we are seeing the youth involved in, especially when it comes to the nightclubs. Now, that is a very good move. However, the continuity and the consistency is where I would probably put the blame on government. Yes, they will come out and make arrests, but why don't they do that consistently? They'll probably do it today, and then maybe like 3 months down the road or 2 months down the road, you will hear reports that they arrested people. But now you see what happens in that span of 2 months. If you're not very consistent, the move is very clear, it's very smart, and it comes from a good place. It clearly shows you that even government is concerned. But if you're not consistent with that, definitely you're creating more loopholes. And I must say Ugandans are also very smart. While government is cooking up strategies to make sure that they put things in check, things in the right line, Ugandans are also trying to look for plan C or a way around it, because they know, especially when it comes to these businesses, these places, they are business areas, the nightclubs, they make a lot of money out of this. So definitely they see that as a way of you blocking their money inlets. But aside from that, I mean, what else can we do? What responsibility? How can we handle this? How can schools, what part of school, what roles can schools play? What roles can parents play, even society? How can we do this to be able to beat this drug usage? Of course, it's not a fight. We can win in one day. It's gradual. But what do we start with right now?
Yeah, it's really going to be a lot of work, because I'm glad we started from the point of government being able to actually implement some of these things, like, for example, regulations on shisha in nightclubs. Now, this is something that seems to be just like a one-day patrol and then it's done, because the next day, most of these clubs actually still have the shisha. But we're talking about maybe at this point adults who are 18 and over, because now most of these clubs will have this whole fiction of, you know what, we only have adults in this, and of course drugs to 18 and over is probably maybe in the law accumulated in there, but we do know that there are laws against drug abuse, and also justice should be taken upon culprits who are caught actually getting drugs into schools or selling drugs to kids. That is where government should be putting a lot of emphasis. But also one thing that I think should be really important in this fight is having information programs, and targeted information programs, especially about drug use and its effects, the effect of using drugs. Now, if you have such programs extending from community level to even educating parents themselves and kids, that means you're trying to actually bridge all these gaps, because in the communities where kids are going to be, obviously if they're educated and they know the implications, they know the effects, then at least they will regulate it. And then you go to a level of parents, because there are people who don't even know that this is a thing, and before you know,
they're very oblivious to it.
Exactly. So when they tell someone your child has been caught using drugs, what is that? They're not even aware. So there is need to be a lot of those information programs that are targeted into making sure everyone in our community is aware of the drugs and also the effect. But also programs that are emphasizing mostly on the risks, that, like you did mention, the risks of drug abuse. What does this pose to your health? And what do you stand to lose? As long as people are aware of this information, they can avoid it, because no one wants to be seen on streets or to go mad on streets because they were using drugs. But once you're aware that, okay, this is how these most mentally ill people got here, then you want to avoid the problem. But I guess that information will have to have come to you first. So that is why we are saying advocate for that. And also, when we talk about the role of schools, we need effective education programs that are mostly going to focus on building self-esteem. but as well as getting into decision making for students. Well, you need to be able to tell the students to believe in themselves, to have that self-esteem if you want to tackle the problem of peer pressure and having influence from their friends, wanting to belong to a certain group. But as long as you build their self-esteem and they know at their level it's okay to be them, let this child be aware that, you know what, I'm cool as I am. I don't need to be in this popular group. I don't need to do drugs to join them, because guess what? I believe in myself, and where I stand, I'm actually okay. And I've seen this in the past. And I'll tell you my experience as one girl who was doing PCB mathematics. And at that level, it was only considered to be a combination by boys or some kind of, you know, type of girls. And I'm like, no, I am cool doing PCB mathematics. I was feeling myself. But guess what? You'll have people looking at you and they're like, why are you doing PCB mathematics? You're a beautiful girl. Shouldn't you be doing some arts? I'm like, no. Now imagine at that level, if you didn't have someone mentoring you at home telling you this is the best combination that you can do, you're forced to think, no, I'm in the wrong place. Maybe you're actually
doing the wrong
you're like, I'm in a wrong place. I should be on the other side, like, you know, the cool girls that, you know, are around the place. They're in all these entertainment clubs. Because at that level, you can't afford to have time for entertainment clubs. And I would want to be in entertainment clubs. So that is building, those programs that target building self-esteem and making sure kids believe in themselves are important. But also decision making. This should start at a level of even nursery. Make sure the child can make a right decision, and that is where it's going to be both parents and teachers and school administration have these programs that are educating kids on how they can make the right decisions, so that when the time comes, they can decide for themselves, no, this is not for me. I don't need to do this. And that is where we should be focusing our attention on. And I do believe, as I conclude on this, having also interpersonal growth. Make sure that kids are actually realizing that as they grow, there is a lot of responsibility that is ahead of them. So you want them to be able to realize that whatever decision they make at this point will influence their growth. And the moment you put in them that, you know what, guess what, you could be a future member of parliament, you could be a future important person, and you can't afford for this record to be behind you. You're going to always be known as the person who was arrested in school for doing drugs. You don't want that on your back.
Absolutely not.
Then they'll be able to actually have that kind of growth that is headed towards the right direction. And I think that is quite important for schools to also advocate for why they're putting on such programs, but also still want to hail on family. Bridge the gaps that you have. Raising kids will take two people. Yes, we have, society has allowed it for being a one-man role, but you need to both come in and make sure that this child is in a good mental state to make these decisions, to also be, you know, responsible for their own lives. When you're not there, we're meaning schools, we're meaning communities, because you're not going to be around them all the time. However, what you tell them, what you advise them will always be around them. So that is where family is important, to make sure that we get these kids away from drug use.
Well, much as we see that the future of fighting drug abuse in society is bleak, I believe that we still have a lot to do to make sure we rub off that kind of thinking. And as you can see, any kind of person, you belong somewhere. Either you are part of the society, or you're part of family, or you are part of the school administration. So it is your role to definitely make sure that we try to disengage our children, especially when it comes to drug abuse. And again, you can see that you have a fair share of blame to take, because if it is a child, it is a child. If there is an adult, you are expected to know better, to be smart, to be the leading light for this child. It is still a war we're fighting, but I believe we can beat it, and I know we can win it. I'm talking about, of course, the growing crisis of drug abuse in schools. Well, the conversation is still going on our socials, so make sure you engage and tell us your thoughts. Just remind you the poll question that is running on our socials: how best can we fight the growing drug usage and abuse amongst Ugandans? How best can we fight the growing drug usage and abuse amongst Ugandans? We're heading into the press review to see what's making the stories in our Daily Monitor, our New Vision, and of course the Daily Nation. Good morning.
Connected today with the My Airtel 4G smartphone and enjoy free data for 1 whole year worth 86,500 Uganda shillings. That's free 2 GB for the first month and free 1 GB for the next 11 months at only 200 450,000 Uganda shillings with free data for 1 whole year worth 86,500 shillings, making the effective price of the 4G phone 163,500 shillings only. Airtel, the smartphone network.
Welcome to English in a Minute. Silver is a valuable metal. Is this expression about babies eating metal? Let's find out.
Jonathan, last night at Kim's party, everyone talked about how they went to the best schools and how they're making tons of money.
Well, they must have worked hard to get to that point, right?
Yeah, I don't think so. They were just born with silver spoons in their mouths.
Yeah, I know the type. They can be a little annoying.
Someone who is born with a silver spoon in their mouth is born into a family of wealth and privilege. We use this expression in a negative way to describe someone who is successful only because of their family's money and connections. And that's English in a Minute.
Pick of the day on UBC. Was brought to you by
Simply deposit 20K or more on your mobile money for a chance to win 3 Toyota Succeeds and money to 2,000 lucky winners every week. We're giving away 24 cars and over 2 billion shillings of mobile money.
When you talk about our motherland Uganda, the Pearl of Africa, you cannot fail to smile because of the smile that fills the faces of the citizens. Our nice good weather and nature that sustains us all enables us all to continue each in their own way because we are all different even according to each individual's work. But what joins us to become one person is the sweetness from the flavored drink Hallelujah Jingati drink and Hallelujah Tamarind drink. The flavor that quenches your thirst while at the same time treating and healing your body because it is 100% natural. Enjoy the drink that has got the tamarind juice in it. Made by Hallelujah Refugee Healthy Solutions and Nutritional Research Center Limited. Get yourself a bottle of Hallelujah from all shops around.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Well, in the press review this morning, we start off with the Daily Monitor now. The big headline over there, Museveni meets army chiefs over alert order. Now, of course, at the command center, since the standby class 1 order went out, all commanders have been directed to account for personnel in area of responsibility, including locations and their activity. Now, still looking at the strike being put up by arts teachers, science teachers ask arts peers to return to class. And in other stories, armed robbers hit Kampala city suburbs. Now, South African police probe nightclub deaths. And we're looking also at the big picture over there, a photo montage of Lieutenant General Muhoozi Kainerugaba, Lieutenant General Peter Elwelu, and the President Museveni over there. Now, government secures 2,000 hectares for Masaka oil palm project. And eggs dealers count losses. Why? How? It's the story that you can catch on page 8 of the Daily Monitor this morning. Now, on the second page, we look at Majwega left a mark in publishing Rotary. And today in history, Government gets funds for Rwandan refugees back in 1974, of course. And still in history, world records first case of Ebola. The year was 1976 on the same date. But also in the New Vision, Mollen, what are we looking at?
Well, the New Vision also gives you teachers' hardship money swindled. Now looks like the education service is getting a lot recently. Details are on page 16 of the New Vision for this morning. But also the big headline right there in the New Vision, security names 24 suspected ADF financiers. All city robberies linked to the rebel suspects. That is detailed on page 5, but they also give you faces of those that have been identified. Now, this is important that you also take to know most of these faces that are being put across. Details are on page 5 of the New Vision. Now, the parish development model, President suspends cabinet meetings. Well, that is detailed on page 6 of the New Vision to see what is really in that story. Now, the strike government is open to talks with the teachers. Well, that is also on page 3 of the New Vision for this morning. In health, how men can beat infertility. Now that is on page 45 and 46. Emioga groups save shillings 64 billion in just 24 months. Well, that is really, really promising. But also details on that story are on page 23 of the New Vision. Heading over to the second page, Swedish teacher Victoria there skipping a rope, and of course that is during some of the activities at Jumbo Junior School right there. Very interesting picture. Now, Ugandans tipped on business opportunities in South Sudan. That is also detailed on the second page of the New Vision as the Ugandan envoy tries to put across these opportunities. You can get yourself a copy and see what is detailed. Today in history, in 1996, Ugandans elect new members of parliament. But also in 2012, today in history, Russia's Putin orders reform of parliament.
And in the Daily Monitor Sports, Uganda faced conundrum in set pieces. Now 5 days to the Women's AFCON, and coach George Lutalo could still have one hiccup to fix in his team. Now, which hiccup is this? Well, grab yourself the Monitor this morning. Now, emphatic cranes. We're looking at the ICC World Cup League B. The Sunday results, I must say, well, quite encouraging, okay? And I must say that the national cricket team is feeling good. You have reasons to get the paper and see why they are feeling so happy about this. Now, in the Wimbledon, no Federer, no points. Novak Djokovic and Rafael Nadal headlined the title chase at Wimbledon, where Roger Federer ranking points will all be missing. And again, crested cranes must address how to make set pieces count. Looking at JKL Dolphins keep you at arm's length. Now get yourself the Daily Monitor this morning to catch up on all the stories and more.
And in the New Vision Sport, time running out for work. Well, how Deje Multipurpose Sports Complex will benefit Uganda. They give you how much is in there and the facilities in the complex, of course, from the football pitch to the multipurpose ball game area, restaurant, gym. There is a lot to uncover right there. They're giving you that in the New Vision Sport for this morning. But also inside the New Vision, Nyamuhunge battling on. That is, of course, as they take you through her journey. Why Uganda has declined, that is, Uganda's football ranks have dropped by about 28 places ever since they attained their highest ranking in the position that is 62 in January 2016. Why that is declining, according to the CECAFA and, of course, the 2017 AFCON, well, that is all detailed in the New Vision for this morning.
Well, switching to the Daily Nation, we look at Hague 2 as Gicheru hearings and ICC struggles to nail Ruto. And of course, in decision 2022, Ruto Raila to mount parallel vote counts. Now, finished deal, finished up in muddy, dusty, and we're talking about the Safari Rally. And still in more news, how war between agencies gave bad leaders a free pass. This is, of course, as the IEBC and the ESCC, of course, fixed muscle and short letters and advisories at each other. You can catch up on the full story of that. Now, looking at business, Commerce watchdog to probe Toyota price fixing claims. These and more all in the Daily Nation this morning. It's quite a very heavy one for you to catch up, so make sure you grab yourself a copy as early as right about now, 22,700 Ugandan shillings. Now, also in the traffic this morning, we want to focus on areas of Komamboga, Chisasi, Chebando, Mulago, and Kulambiro as you're headed to the city center. And listen, what I have to say is that it's not looking rosy, as very many spots are quite dominated by red. Red, of course, showing you that the traffic is very heavy in these specific areas. We also do have a traffic build-up in several of these areas. Now, starting off with Komamboga over here, I must say that it must be quite a very heavy or a busy morning, especially if you're coming in from this area, because there are several traffic buildups as shown by the orange spots on this road. But also the same road does have some red spots, meaning that the traffic is quite very busy. And of course, as you're headed towards Waligo Road, I must say that the traffic does not become any less. Matter of fact, the red quite covers big stretches on this same road. Now, this is the same road where you could actually connect to Chisasi using the Bahai Road, or you could still continue all the way as you're headed towards Chebando. However, if you're using Bahai Road to connect to the Bukoto Chisasi Road, I must say it would be a good decision or idea for you to take, because that very specific road is not anything to worry about. However, if you're continuing through to Chebando and you want to connect to Mulago Road, I must say that Chebando, the stretch from Waligo Road to Chebando, has quite some build-ups. Some orange spots over here and here definitely tell you that the traffic is building up in these areas. Now, since it's a Monday morning, there are chances that it could even get heavier by the minute or even by, an hour. Like I already said, Monday is quite a busy one. We have very many people trying to trek to town, making their way to town. It's the start of the week, so there is a lot going on for very many people. So you need to either be very early, or you need to be patient while in it, or you could wait a little longer if you really don't have to be in town urgently. But yes, as you're headed towards Mulago, I must say that Mulago is actually quite very free this morning, and again, it's quite a busy one, but it could also build up any minute from now. Now, when you go all the way as you're connecting, of course, to the Old Chira Road, Old Chira Road is something that is quite very busy in this morning, because we have cars coming in from Tinda, we have cars also trying to join this main route as they're trying to make their city center, getting to Mulago roundabout, or even trying to connect through Wandegea to make sure they get to the city center. But yes, it's very busy this morning, so I would advise that maybe you use that route, or you decide to go through and connect through John Babiha Road. But John Babiha Road also this morning, I must say, it's quite very busy now. That is after you've connected from around Kisementi and you're joining Yusuf Lule Road. Yusuf Lule Road, on the other hand, is also quite dominated by very many red spots, especially at the roundabout over there, and that is, of course, from Binaisa Road. Binaisa Road is very busy this morning. All the reds and the maroons you can find on this road over here. So yes, you need to be very steady. Matter of fact, you need to start looking for an alternative route, or where you can take a detour off if you can. But this road this morning, I must say, it wouldn't be the ideal decision that you could take to use it. And yes, you will connect definitely to Yusuf Lule Road. Yusuf Lule Road is also very busy this morning as you head all the way to the main road, that is the Kampala Jinja Highway. So yes, make quite a very smart decision this morning to make sure that you beat all the traffic as you're headed to the city center. It's a Monday morning, so it's expected, much as the cars have kind of reduced on the road. I don't know, Mollen, whether it's just an observation I've made, but I've also have heard from very many people, especially as the week goes by. Because yes, Monday may be a little bit different, but as the days go by, apparently the cars are reducing on the road. On a Tuesday and a Wednesday, you walk by in traffic. And
the fuel prices recently are not looking good. It feels like you have to calculate within the week which days you're going to drive. And I think this is a reality that a lot of us are facing currently. And of course, it is until you make that decision and see which days are actually going to be favorable for you that you can move forward. Otherwise, this country will lemwa, so you just have to find a way.
Well, if you're coming in from those areas, Kamwacha, Bukoto, Komamboga, Ntinda, Kulambiro, I must say that you're having a very busy morning, especially on the roads. So because the red spots are dominating most of these roads. So yes, you need to be very, very patient and be very responsible while at it, because I know there are some people who get reckless, who become very impatient and also become very violent on the road, and they are filled up with rage. That is not the ideal way to use the roads, especially if you want to cut down on the number of accidents we're having, and also to ensure that we all use the road in a proper manner. Well, that's it from the traffic updates this morning. It's time for us to know what is happening in the weather and climate space.
Well, in the weather and climate news, we're looking at mostly what is, we started with what is happening internationally. And of course, when we're talking about, the climate variations across the world, I'm happy to say that I was actually happy with the decision that was made at the end of the Chuegam Summit, where leaders agreed that there is need for them to actually take more action on climate change. And of course, that is going to be through advocating for more action. And of course, the role that is played by developing countries and also the developed countries, especially since they are the ones that are making pledges to help out the developing countries in coping with the changing climate. But also what we are getting from Japan is that there is a possible power clutch as of today, and of course there are fears that the temperatures are rising at an early state. Now, so far there is a lot of scorching heat, and of course that has already broken record. They are saying that they have not seen something like this as earliest as this since 1951. Of course, that has raised fears of a hot and long summer amidst the fuel prices that are also seem to be raging across the area. And obviously that means people will be driving around. You cannot afford to put AC, you cannot afford to do a lot with it. And Tokyo has already brought out the record temperatures that officials are now calling for possible actions. Of course, that is for power conservation, especially in the afternoons, where there is going to be a lot of heat that is coming through. And of course, that is the first time that they are giving such alerts since 1951. Talk about all these climate variations that are coming to break records of beyond 30 years. And of course, the meteorology department over there is also saying that the forecast does indicate that there's going to be a lot of rise in temperatures that the country should be blessing themselves for. And obviously, as also that makes it to the attention of course, the World Meteorological Organization to look into how most of these are breaking records. Because this is kind of information that is also used when scientists are relating to most of these assessment reports that are being done to see some of the possible indicators of climate change. And of course, I think we have taken on rising temperatures as one of those that have contributed to actually the possible scenarios that are indicating that our climate is changing. It's no longer normal as usual. And of course, there is a lot that is expected from the G7 meetings now as they meet in as a group of 7 countries, of course, big countries that have influenced a lot of decisions. People have taken it on the streets to demonstrate and call for action. And they are saying we're going to have to protest for climate justice. Now, hundreds have taken it to the streets to protest for climate justice as G7 leaders meet in Bavaria. Now, this is one of those meetings that are expected to be going through, especially with making decisions on what we could be expecting from these leaders. And when we're talking about the G7, we're talking about the United States, Germany, France, Britain, Italy, Canada, and Japan. Now, they are starting, they did start a 3-day summit that was from yesterday. And of course, that will be going through for today. and tomorrow. And what people are saying is that these countries are meeting, or as leaders they are meeting, to talk about what their role is in the whole world. And of course right now we know that the target will be focused mostly on the Ukraine-Russia war. But how about those efforts be also channeled towards making sure that we have climate action? And of course much of that is going to be looking at what the protests are all about. And that is why, you know, people are saying unless we take it to the streets, we're not going to be aware of what is happening. Well, also we do see that most of these are actually geared towards the stopping of the greenhouse gases, and of course that is burning fossil fuels. And of course also what is being looked at is the fact that there is need to abolish the use and production of coal. And this is something that was agreed upon during the UN summit in Glasgow, that is by coming up with the Glasgow Pact. Now the Glasgow Pact aimed specifically on ensuring that we actually reduce the production of coal. But of course with the Russia-Ukraine war, now countries did resort to again producing of more coal. And this is why people are saying no, enough of this. You need to address climate action. You need to first of all make good on your commitments. If you say stop production of coal, why are you again the same people that are going back to use of coal, yet there is an option to go with renewable energy? And that is why people are taking it to the streets ahead of this meeting. They are saying that now, instead of you focusing your attention on how to help Ukraine cope with the war or how to end the war, yes, well and good, we know it's for the good cause, but all that money that you're channeling there could be the same money that you actually are putting into climate action. And of course now eyes are on Egypt, on the climate conference that will be taking place there. We want to see action, and of course now until we get there, we're still going to demand that they make good on what was agreed upon in Glasgow, because we're still going to have these meetings and of course coming up with protocol, coming up with pacts, coming up with agreements that are never being implemented on ground. And that is why we're even talking about extreme events, because the action is being delayed. And talking about extreme weather events, we did have also a meeting running down in our neighbors here, that is in Nairobi. And of course, much of what was discussed is on how to cope with the changing weather in Africa. And we do know that at least we have been dealing with a lot in terms of adaptation. However, there is also a lot that has to be done in biodiversity, because we know we've had a lot of loss, especially when it comes to our forest cover, when it comes to, you know, plants, and obviously there has been a lot of deforestation across Africa. And what we are asking as contribution from developing countries is also preserve nature. Now there was efforts to draft an ambitious global agreement on halting natural loss that ended on Sunday in Nairobi, and of course there was little progress with the negotiations, leaving limited time to, you know, bridging the gap on the biodiversity pact that is also expected this year. Now reports from the meeting in Nairobi are also indicating that of course there is a lot that is needed to be done when it comes to conservation of nature, especially when you look at things like forests, when you look at things like national parks. How we are conserving that is going to have to be a responsibility of each nation. And of course we do know that we have been blessed as Africa. We have a lot of cover, forest cover. But the moment we start cutting down that, then we're also contributing to the problem at hand. And I think we've seen a lot of examples even here in Uganda of, you know, Mabila being encroached on. A lot of forests are even no more, and that is on us. So while we're complaining that, you know, these developed countries are not helping out on us adapting, how about we also preserve what we have in terms of nature? And maybe that is how we're going to get into, you know, curbing the problem of having to talk about extreme weather events or having to experience it and all the loss and destruction that comes with it. But well, away from that, we also want to take a look at the weather that is happening across the country for this morning. We'll be tapping in from our satellites, and of course we did start off with a little bit of rains that was across areas within the Lake Victoria Basin, parts of Kalangala Island, all those rains also that made it through towards areas of Wakiso and a little bit of Kampala. And it seems like right now those rains have actually cleared away for mostly intervals of sunny and cloudy conditions. Now we're also seeing a cloudy morning that is across the eastern part of the country, across the Mount Elgon Highland as well, and that is extending all the way up to that is Lake Kyoga region. Why you see those white colors, that is where we do have quite a cloudy morning. But also in the country seems to be dealing with mostly a sunny morning. Take a look at Karamoja right there. That is to the northeastern part of the country. That is where we're starting off with quite a sunny morning, and that is extending towards the central part of northern Uganda, over Gulu right there, Padel, Kitugum. That is also towards Arua. We're looking at quite a sunny morning, and most likely we're going to maintain that kind of weather that is throughout the entire morning. Although as we head into the afternoon, we do expect to have a little bit of rain developing that is across the central part of northern Uganda all the way up to West Nile. Now we also have those clouds actually moving in towards westwards, that is towards midwestern Uganda, areas of Hoima and Masindi. We're starting off with quite intervals of sunny and cloudy conditions, but we do expect most of those to also develop into a little bit of rains later in the afternoon, but for now it's going to be mostly sunny intervals. Now looking at the Lake Victoria Basin, that is starting off with the eastern area towards Tororo, Jinja, that seems to be dealing with mostly cloudy weather for now. We do expect a little bit of rains to come through as we head into the afternoon. That will take in parts of the central part of central part of Lake Victoria Basin, where we have Kampala, Entebbe areas of Wakiso, Mukono as well. We'll be seeing more of those developments later in the afternoon as well, and that takes in the western part of Lake Victoria. That is where we have Masaka. We do have Rengo, Zimbabwe over there, and that is also expected to maintain quite intervals of sunny and cloudy conditions for this morning, but we will have those rains coming through later as the day progresses. Now across southwestern Uganda, areas of Fort Portal, you look at Ntungamo, areas of Mbarara, Boshenyi, Ibanda. We're starting off with quite a sunny morning, but also that is expected to develop a little bit of rains later as the day progresses towards the afternoon. Now same as we look at also areas of Kabale, Kisoro, we're starting off with quite sunny skies, although temperatures are quite cooler over that area, and I think it's quite normal for this time of the year for that cool weather across southwestern Uganda. However, also that will be changing later in the afternoon. We'll be having a little bit of clouds developing over the area. Most likely those will also be bringing us quite some rains over there. And it seems like mostly the western sector is starting off with quite intervals of sunny and cloudy conditions, but again later in the afternoon we do expect to have a little bit of rains developing over the area. That will be same across the southern part of the country. That takes in the Lake Victoria Basin, also towards Mount Elgon Highlands. That is where we do expect more rains to develop over the area. Otherwise, parts of Karamoja region and eastern Uganda will maintain mostly sunny intervals for much of today. Well, that is it in terms of weather and nature for this morning, but do stick around. We have Good Morning Uganda agenda coming up. Later on, we'll also be taking you through the sports highlights, and later than that, we'll be coming through with Good Morning Uganda Extra. Well, not forgetting we're streaming live on YouTube. That is UBC Television Uganda, and of course, you can catch us on our social media platforms. The hashtag is hashtag UBCGNU. My name is Mollen, Kenyena. I want to wish you a fruitful week.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
Pick of the day on UBC. Was brought to you by
Simply deposit 20K or more on your mobile money for a chance to win 3 Toyota Succeeds and money to 2,000 lucky winners every week. We're giving away 24 cars and over 2 billion shillings of mobile money.
We bring you a fresh, well-researched program to help you identify opportunities for investment, job creation, growing your entrepreneurial skills, wealth creation, and social transformation.
We have a product that is ready for schools, supermarkets.
Create wealth, transform livelihoods. Every week we showcase opportunities for creating new products and services.
I now harvest a lot of cocoa. When I harvest it, I sell. After selling, I put money in my project. I have 2 projects. 1 is for construction of my house, 2 is for educating my children.
Excellence in innovation, the passion and drive to succeed, and the right mindset to grow your business. Create wealth, transform livelihoods. Brought to you by Operation Wealth Creation.
Are you a player in the tourism sector with a struggling business following the COVID pandemic? UDB, in partnership with European Union, is providing financial assistance to businesses operating in the tourism sector. You can access subsidized loan with grants, loan with a tenor of up to 5 years, free business advisory services, and free environmental impact assessment. Visit www.udbl.co.ug/call for applications to apply. Deadline for submission is 31st October 2022 at 5 p.m. For more information, please call 0414 355 509.
Welcome to English in a Minute. This is a weasel. These wild animals are small and tricky.
Wow, Anna. Looks like you could use some help. Let me carry that.
Thanks, Jonathan. I can always count on you. Jessica, not so much.
She weaseled out of helping you again, didn't she?
Yes, she did. She's a weasel.
To weasel out of something means to successfully avoid doing something in a dishonest or clever way. This phrasal verb has a mostly negative meaning. You can also call someone a weasel, like Anna did. Some animals just have a bad reputation. And that's English in a Minute.
Football packages, great entertainment,
sports, the local content, telenovela, the movies. There is something for everybody. Everybody. Go TV, this is where best stories live.
Get the best entertainment for any budget. With GoTV, you will have great entertainment for as little as 13,000 Uganda shillings per month. GoTV, great stories, Zidiwano. GoTV Uganda, love it.
Live from Now Avenue in UBC Studios. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Well, it's 4 minutes after the hour of 8 a.m. right here on Good Morning Uganda, coming to you from our beautiful studios right here at Nile Avenue. Well, welcome to this very special segment that is the GMU Agenda, where we get to talk about topics of national importance. My name is Philomena Mastiko, and I am joined by a very special guest this morning who will be sharing with us some of the insights, some of the way forward, some of the plan strategies, and also giving us conversations that we need, especially when it comes to what is happening in the education sector. Well, that is Mr. Duluga Buni Philip. Thank you for joining us this morning.
You're most welcome, Philomena.
Yes. Now, Mr. Duluga here is the Deputy General Secretary, UNATU, that is the Uganda National Teachers Union. Now, if you've been following up on the last stories that have been happening in the last couple of weeks, I must say they haven't been good. We have seen teachers go on strike. We've seen our science teachers go on strike, especially when the term was beginning because of salary increments and every other thing that comes with that. Now, their issues seem to have been heard by government and they were sorted. Now, when it comes to our arts teachers in the country, well, they are on strike for the same cause. Definitely, that is a salary enhancement. But when you look at all these, it is the education sector. This has a lot that it affects. You know, the students, the parents, but even the education sector in general. Now, this morning, we're going to be having a discussion between myself and Mr. Buni over here concerning salary enhancement in the education sector. Well, thank you for joining us this morning once again, Dr. Duluga. And I am glad that you come here to represent UNATU, and we would really love to hear from the side of UNATU. First of all, before we get into all this, how did we even get here? Because, you know, from 15th June, we had our arts teachers go on strike because all they want is their salary to be increased so that they can get back to class and do what they're supposed to do. Now, ever since then, we have seen very We have seen new things unfold. We have seen directives coming in from public service. We've had the take of other science teachers. We have had a take from other people responsible. But how did we even get here?
Yeah, thank you. Let me put off my mask. I hope we have a good distance.
This distance is very, very good.
Thank you for. Thank you, the moderator and. Dear listeners, my name is Kirabo Philip. I'm the Deputy General Secretary, Uganda National Teachers Union. Although you call me a doctor, but I'm not a doctor.
Well, I would wish you to be a doctor.
That's a good day. Yeah, thank you, members and listeners. It's a pleasure to be here, more especially discussing issues of salary enhancement.
Yes.
And for us, as a union, you know, our core mandate is to lobby and advocate for the improved working and the living condition of our members, who are the teachers.
Yes.
And of course, we take into account the issue of welfare, which is key, and it's one of the advocacy issue. And you know, the issue of salary enhancement has taken time. I remember even before I came to UNATO, that has been one of the issues we have been raising. And the concern here is we as a union, we so much treasure in the welfare.
Yes.
But on the other side, you find that there is a lot of laxity on the side of the government. Because if you look at the background of how this salary enhancement started, it has taken some time back. I remember there was the 2013 salary target, which was around 50%.
2013.
Yes. That was also a time when we went into industrial action, although some people call it strike, but
who would rather go with industrial action.
Yeah.
All right.
So at that time, there was the issue of the 50%. Of course, that time even we demanded for 100%, but the government was able to say, for us, we are going to pay the 50%.
Yes.
And those payments were staggered into phases. I think the first one was 25, 15, it went up to that time. And it was for all sectors. I remember the last enhancement also was done leaving out the post-primary education sector. And that was also one of the issues that we kept on, for some time we kept on also trying to advocate to ensure that there is equity for all sectors. And I remember it also brought time until when we came to the 2018 salary enhancement plan, where we clearly told the government that
yes,
you made a promise and this promise was not implemented. So the balance which was for post-primary education sector was one of the issues that was also implemented. And I think that time it was around 15%, but because of those issues, finally they paid at 20%. And that also brought us to the issue of now having agreement between the union and the government, which resulted into what they call the collective bargaining agreement, which was signed in June 2018.
Yes.
And that is the document that really now has brought the shape of all these negotiations into the affirmative action, because we believe with the signing of the document,
yes,
we believe the teacher issues are going to be solved, and it was going to be history.
And was this for both the science teachers and the arts teachers?
Yes, for all sectors. And of course, this collective bargaining agreement was signed, including even the public labor unions, of which UNATO is part of it. And in this agreement, the public pay policy was one of the issues that was agreed on. And there are a number of parameters under that agreement. I don't know if you have a look at that.
You can actually even take us through some of them.
Yes, some of the issues that were raised in those agreement
yes,
specifically addresses the current state of the issues. Because one is the, allow me to refer to the document.
Yes.
We agreed on the issue of the pay policy for the public service, where it was agreed that all public officers who draw salaries from the consolidated pay, including the pay targets, which we agreed will all be catered for. And it was also agreed, one of the issues was the salary structure and the pay targets, which we also agreed a 5-year plan of pay target. That was 2018-2019.
Yes.
2019-2020. 2021 to 2022. 2022-2023. And we came up with the figures. And this document was signed. And we have all the specified key figures. It was supposed to be implemented according to these financial years.
Yes.
The first time where it was also agreed that is to be implemented in phases. And we have categories of those phases. We look at phase 1, I think they were able to implement for other public universities and the issue of the teachers and
non-teaching staff.
Non-science teachers,
yes,
and other public service was supposed to be also in phase 2. And that's where the teachers issues were clearly specified.
Yes.
And the challenge, the document was clearly signed, but the challenge was the implementation aspect.
Yes.
Because the government signed the documents and they committed themselves. But when it came to the implementation aspect, this one was aborted.
Yes.
It was like a miscarriage, which did not even take time to be implemented. So we kept on reminding them on their obligations, and yes, I think a number of letters were written to them in terms of reminder. But all along, it is like not being appreciative enough.
Yes.
And not being committed to the teacher issues. So in a nutshell, this agreement was not honored.
Yes, especially when it comes for the...
and that is the basis of the whole issues for now. Because our target was, if this pay target was honored, by now...
Yes. We wouldn't be having this conversation.
Yes, we wouldn't be even having this conversation.
Yes.
And also having these issues. And of course, we are mindful of the engagement that we always had. And in this, we were always disappointed.
Yes. Now, Mr. Deluga, from the time the industrial action started, which is on 15th of June, have you had any more talks? Because I understand you had you made reminders before that, reminding government to fulfill their promise. Even the science teachers will tell you that they kept doing that constantly. But from the time you started the industrial action, have you had any conversations with the stakeholders?
Yeah, taking you back to the genesis before the agreement, we were able to inform the government, and even before going to this, we gave them a notice sometime back in 2019, and this notice was telling them if they fail to adhere to the agreement that was signed by them, we will be having no any other option other than to lay down our tools.
Yes.
And we gave them the 90 days notice.
Those are 3 months.
Yes. Those ones went, and they were adamant until we also went into the action, and that was the time when they came up and say, okay, now we have got some little money here, and I think that time the budget was around 524 billion.
Yes.
And by then they were committing around 135 billion, and then that was what was paid. And out of that we had a balance of around 389 to date, which was not paid. So we kept reminding them systematically all these failed promises.
Yes, to remind them that they had pending responsibilities to meet.
And this is something that you are supposed to be able to what? Fulfill as a state, because you signed for it, and the document is well signed by all the government representatives who are supposed to be part of the what?
Yes.
Yeah, the negotiating consultative council. So this has all been history. So 2019 came, and 2020, you remember what happened?
Yes.
We went into lockdown. The 2021 was also another issue. That, okay, since we have this challenge, let us first of all what?
Deal with this.
Deal with this. And that time, before we even suspended the industrial action of 2018, we made it very clear that we are giving you time,
yes,
to implement what we have agreed. And for us, we can accept this, and therefore, we expect you to be following your promises. And that was the time when we were able to go on. We told them, okay, we are not calling off the industrial action, but we are what? We are suspending it.
Yes.
It was a suspension, but we never called it off. We suspended it, and during the lockdown, we say, let us also give it time. So now in 2022, we also reminded them on their unfulfilled promises, which I think had a series of communication between us and the government. To our surprise, most of these communications went without any positive response. And I think that was one of the issues that we were so much disappointed on the side of the government, because it does not really show a commitment to that effect. And we kept monitoring what was going on. And I think finally, when the budget was read, we were able to confirm
where you were standing as at
but we expected it,
yes,
to be in that way, but we wanted it to be in a way that is to the expectation that really it is a failed aspect on the government side.
Well, now in response to this, actually, government through the Public Service Ministry, they said right now they don't have the money to be able to cater to the enhancements that the arts teachers are really trying to make sure that they get to. But even that, they were given an ultimatum, you know, what they would ideally call a bombshell. They did ask the arts teachers to actually return to classes. I think that was by 24th of June. And if they don't, they risk being scrapped off the payroll. Now, how would you actually describe this directive?
Yeah, first of all, it is very unfortunate on the side of the government, because one, if you look at the trend at which this issue is happening, and for us as a union, we clearly told them we are not against any salary enhancement for our colleagues, teachers of science, but we are against the aspect of discriminatory enhancement, which I think is very unconstitutional.
Yes.
Because when you look at the Constitution, I think Article 14 talked about the issue of the economic rights, and one of the issues that it's emphasized there is the issue of ensuring equal pay for equal work. without discrimination.
Any discrimination.
And I think that is something that the government side failed to honor. And I think that is something that is very unfortunate. I think our stand as a union is to ensure that we work towards improving the quality of education. And this is done through enhanced teachers' welfare. Because really, if you cannot address the issue of the teachers' welfare, you see, obviously, the workforce that is not happy at the workplace will never help. And therefore, this is something that really translates into teachers having that kind of discriminatory nature. And it is really something that is very, very uncalled for.
Yes.
Imagine you put yourself in the shoes of the teacher, like Madam Philomena. Assuming you are the teacher and you are being treated in that way. You are looking at the teacher that handles the chalk. And you try to put yourself in that shoes. Definitely, you will have the true picture of that teacher in you.
Well,
and we are so much focused on trying to ensure that all teachers within the subsectors of education are paid equally. Because there is no any other difference. Because these people go to the same training. They have the same qualification. But it's just the aspect of so-and-so is teaching such a subject. It doesn't necessarily mean that you are supposed to be paid higher than the other.
Yes, because both sectors are still necessary.
And therefore, whatever we are doing is not the issue supposed to be done. And therefore, for us, as a union, we are within the legal parameters. We follow the law to the dot, and we believe our actions and the struggles we are making is within the law. And therefore, we encourage our teachers to be firm. The industrial action is justified, and therefore, we are fighting for their cause. And this is the only moment that we can always be having the positive part when we work together as a team. We are aware that there is a lot of threats and intimidations which are being fueled by local government agents. And therefore, it is very unfortunate. We call the teachers to remain firm. The industrial action is on. Stay home and wait for our cause, because it is now that we shall be able to sort out our issues other than any other time.
Okay, and it's very interesting how you say that, because the science teachers were actually asking the arts teachers to, you know, join them and get back into class as government is trying to work on their issues. But of course, from what you're saying, clearly that is, I don't think that's the ideology you believe in for now. But also looking at the industrial action that you're taking, Mr. Duluga, it has implications, of course, and to different categories of people. We have the students themselves, we have also the parents, but we also have the education sector in general. And I know that you have a bigger scope of this. Now, what are some of the implications that we see this, just in case government doesn't actually work on their promises, implementing them 100%? What are we looking at? What could be the implications of this to the entire education sector?
First of all, I think we made even very clear to the government. I remember when we met His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Uganda, I think that was in Saturday on the 18th in Entebbe. We made our point very clear. But it was unfortunate that the government officials are not aware of the impact of this discriminatory salary enhancement. And that's where now the challenge is, because we look at the situation on ground. If you go, we are always on ground. We know what's taking place. Yeah, like in the school environment, we have teachers of science, what they call, and then the teachers of arts having different staff room. You see, that's already a problem.
Is that so?
Yes, it is happening. They don't see each other eye to eye. And therefore, you see, that is the implication now of this. We have also a very bad situation, like some of these teachers who teach science are so braggant to the extent that they are even telling the fellow learners that these teachers who teach art subjects are not important. And you see, that's something which is very bad.
Yes.
And it is creating that kind of environment which is not conducive. So we are looking at the issue of having intrigue, we have clique, and then sometimes even the learners end up even calling the students who are offering subjects, the art subjects, and even the teachers who are teaching. They even nickname to be comedians, you see, artists.
The artist students,
yes. Singers, you see, just the same way even the government was trying to give name to these teachers. So it's something really very unprofessional, and therefore we are going to see a lot of dynamics that may not be real favorable. And therefore, what does it mean? Definitely it will affect the teaching learning process.
Yes.
So equally, the government is not aware of this impact. But for us as a union, we are very much mindful of the learners and the students. And therefore, that's why we are also saying, let us first of all address the teacher issue, and thereafter we shall be able to see how we will be able to have ways in which these teachers, obviously when the teacher is happy.
Yes.
Definitely, even if there is a lot of workload, this teacher will be able to work and will be able to produce results. But looking at the current situation where we are going now, we expect the worst. And that is something which is very unfortunate. And it is going to affect the overall school achievement.
Yes.
Definitely. But for us as a union, we are stuck to our guns.
Yes.
No pay rise, no classes. And therefore, we call upon the government, and our doors are open for negotiation.
Okay.
Because I remember one of the issues that we agreed the other time when we were in Tebe was to have further engagement. But when we came back, we were never invited.
Yes.
And one time I saw the spokesperson for the Ministry of Education was trying to suggest that we should be the one to go and knock at the door. You see, you are supposed to be the one to invite us.
Not you to...
Not us to go and say, when are we having this meeting? But I think that's something that is not taken in a positive way. So the lack of will is one of the issues that now trying to bring this. And right now, the kind of threats and intimidation they're trying to focus on may not be a good one, because it is going to cause a lot of unseen effects, which eventually will be impacting on the learner or the student, and it's very unfortunate.
Well, we are with Mr. Duluga Buni Philip, and he is the Deputy General Secretary, UNATU, that is the Uganda National Teachers Union. And we're talking about a salary enhancement in the education sector. Definitely, if you've been following up conversations, you know that things are not really looking so rosy, especially when it comes to the teachers from the different sectors. We know that the science teachers were sorted, especially in the new budget. Salary increments are expected. However, when it comes to our teachers of the arts, it's still a fight that they're putting up through the industrial action, and we have seen the reaction that has come in, for some of the reaction that has come in from government, but also we need to know the way forward. We need to know how this is going to be happening. We also need to know how long, but we've also had a discussion about the implications of an industrial action like this, especially for the education sector in general, and we've also looked at the origin of this strike or industrial action? How did we get here? That is the discussion we're having this morning. Now you can engage and tell us your thoughts, share your thoughts with us on our Twitter, and that is, of course, you can use the hashtag UBCGMU for me to catch up on your response, and we have discussions like this. Now, Mr. Duluga, at some point there were reports that maybe the arts teachers, when it comes to, especially when we are going to focus on the discriminatory salary enhancements, so the reaction was probably maybe they need to revise some of the fractions that were made, especially to the science teachers, and maybe try to enhance the arts teachers' salaries, just because government say they don't have money right now set aside for the arts teachers for that sector. Is this something that you would be looking into, or you actually need to be worked on individually, as you know, the other sector?
Thank you, Philomena. I think the issue right now is the failure,
yes,
of the government to implement the collective bargaining agreement. Because if they were supposed to implement this to the dot,
yes,
everything was specified clearly. And it's a very smart document and very comprehensive in content.
Yes.
And the mere fact that they have chosen the discriminatory path of implementing is a clear indication that they have abrogated the collective bargaining agreement, which is very unfortunate.
Yes.
Because in the pay target that we specified, right from the time of 2018, 2019, 2019, 2020, 2020 to 2021, 2021 to 2022, and now 2022 to 2023, these financial years, it was very clearly specified. It was a 5-year pay target. And as I told you all along, they were unable to implement this, apart from the 135 billion they gave us.
Yes.
And the other phases. But because of the challenges the country was going through, we said, let us give it time. And that's why we are woken up now. So we are not saying this pay for science teachers, the 4 million should not be paid, no. We are aware that the government has realized that every teacher qualifies for that amount.
Yes.
And I think that is something that we have taken it positively. But in our pay targets, we made it very clearly. For example, there was a proposal where we said science teachers of science at graduate level.
Yes.
I think our pay was trying to propose around 4.8 million. And then for arts at around 4.5. So there was a difference of around 300,000. But on top of that, the teachers of science, I remember even it was the union that advocated for a 30% science allowance.
Yes.
Previously, the government introduced that policy in 2011, and at that time, they did not include the teachers of science. And it was also the union that advocated for that, saying, yes, if you are considering scientists from these other sectors,
yes,
why not the teachers who teach science? And that was when we were able to get the 30% allowance. So actually, as we talk now, these teachers are given 30% as allowance above the others. So in other words, they are still at a comfortable zone, even if all of us were supposed to be benefiting from the pay target that we agree in our CBA.
Yes.
So we are saying, let us come back and implement the CBA. Now the government is saying they don't have money. But is it easy to believe that? When you look at some of these administrative expenditures going everywhere, right from the president's office, everywhere.
Yes.
To the government ministries and so on. So there's a lot of waste, and this waste is the issue that is trying to give an ugly picture that as if the government does not have money. And we are now saying let us have a modification.
Yes.
And this modification we are talking about can best be agreed when we also look into the aspect of what we agreed and signed for, and then the ones they are proposing, so that we have a midway. Because we are not ready to go for this discriminatory salary enhancement. It is something that will not help us at all. Because tomorrow, we are mindful of the future of the learners.
Yes.
These are the future generation. And now, you can force the teachers to go back. But you don't know what happens in the teaching learning processes. As
They
I
could
told
actually choose to go to class, but they will not do really.
They can even go to teach.
Yes.
But you never know what happens. Because a teacher is not happy. And therefore, unhappy worker means a lot.
Yes.
So to avoid this issue of having these challenges, the best way is let us come back and remain sober and do what is required.
Yes.
Because I think if we implement this by now, everybody will be shaking hands and saying, yes, things are moving well. But it's very unfortunate my colleagues in the so-called science teachers, because they call them science teachers, but they're teachers of science because they teach the subject.
Yes.
That the way they have taken it is like trying to think that we as UNATO, we're trying to fight them. No, we're not fighting anybody.
Yes.
Actually, what we want is everybody to join the fight and ensure that there is.
In fact, people believe that if they were not worked on as well, they would still be with you in this fight. So there is an argument that now they're too comfortable because, well, their plea has been adhered to by government. So that's why they feel the need to encourage you to get back to class as you await government's right response and reaction towards this industrial action.
Because the few number of years that I worked with the union, I've discovered that thing. You know, the issue of unionism is not a joking matter.
Yes.
And very many can wake up and say, let us have this union and this union. It's okay, you can open the doors. But I don't think you'll be able to sustain this for some time. Because now for us, as UNATO, we are now almost 20 years.
Yes.
But you see, we still work hard to ensure that things are okay. But now for you, because now you are coming, simply because you said, you have your 4 million. What happens after the 4 million? What are you going to do? Will you still remain opening the door? So these are issues that really, it's very unfortunate because it's going to divide the teachers, and therefore the aspect, the focus, the mandate of unions will be lost. That is the unfortunate thing, and for them they are looking at it in a way that it is us blocking. We are not blocking anyone.
Yes.
And therefore, people must get it clear that UNATO is fighting for equal rights, fighting for equity. That must be observed in the education sector for harmony to be there in the teaching learning process. You see a situation where like there are ugly situations where you find the school administrators versus the science teachers, because the issue of the pay. You see, these are practical issues.
Yes. I've had actually reports like that. You find the headmaster is actually having quite very serious fights or arguments with the arts teachers because, like you said, they are braggarts. Now they feel they are bigger than the administration. And now that you talk about it,
so now there is supervision. How do you supervise somebody who gets 4 million? By the way, leave alone the school administrators.
Yes.
What about the district leadership? The DOs, the cows, human resource. These people get little pay, and they want to be in charge of these teachers. So it's going to create a very ugly situation, and even a lay person will be able to see that this is bad. But we want to thank the stakeholders and the community for their support.
Yes.
Because everyone is against this move. And therefore, even the support they have given us, they are giving us moral support.
I
and
saw the
therefore-
public service servants say that if the directive from public service is actually put into action, they could actually join the teachers in their strike, because they believe they are fighting for the right thing.
We're encouraging everyone to join us because we are fighting for a just cause.
Yes.
And this just cause must be sorted out so that there is harmony in the teaching learning process, and that's the challenge we are going to see.
Well, we're having some reactions coming in from some of you on our social media. And Kalemba Edward, you're saying discriminatory responses are not encouraged. The teachers of arts are the same as the teachers of sciences, so they all deserve salary increments. And from you, Maria, you're saying government giving a directive for teachers to get back to work and their salaries being scrapped off is not the ideal thing. Matter of fact, it's giving them more energy to continue getting into the action to make sure that their causes are heard. Well, thank you so much, Maria. And coming in from Nakayemba Letitia, you're saying that teachers all deserve equal pay regardless of the subjects they are focusing on to. So government needs to listen and create the ideal budget that is necessary to work on the teachers of arts. Well, the feedback is coming in. Let it continue. The conversation is still happening, and I am still with Mr. Duluga Buni Philip, the Deputy General Secretary for the Ugandan National Teachers Union. And we've been having a discussion, especially in line with salary enhancement in the education sector. Now, as we are coming to the conclusion, Mr. Deluga, we want to know what's the way forward? What happens after this? We already know that teachers are not in attendance, and it's really bad, especially for some schools where they're actually closed. Some of them are closed, others we're having students attending, but they don't have teachers to attend to them. So what's the way forward? What are your expectations as you're still going on with the industrial action?
The way forward is the industrial action is still on course.
Okay. There are no thoughts of even suspending it anytime soon?
No. The suspension can only come when we have a positive word.
Yes.
A feedback and a agreed position. This time we are tired of the issues of promises. Yes. You know, we saw it. You know, history also repeats itself, and that's the situation in which we are. We encourage all the teachers to remain home because it is still on. But as I told you, our doors are open. We encourage dialogue, and more especially implementing the CBA. Because that is the only solution we're supposed to have it done. So this issue of threats, intimidation will not help. We're on ground. It is true most schools are closed.
Yes.
Teachers at home. But we are aware that there are some intimidative aspects forcing teachers through their heads of their head teachers and education heads, forcing them to come to school. And we are aware of that. There is a call being made to coerce our teachers. But we want to thank the teachers of this country for the move. And we encourage you to remain firm. Because for us as a union, we are within the cause. And therefore, whatever we are doing is within the mandate of the laws. And therefore, whatever it takes, we are ready. Actually, as a union, we're prepared because we know what happens. In any case, we go to the ugly side of it.
Yes.
We'll be able to manage it. And therefore, teachers should not be scared. Everybody will be protected because we have the manpower, we have the legal brains around. Even the community and the stakeholders are offering their support.
Okay.
In case of any threats that may make an ugly situation.
All right. So clearly, you've put your point across. Thank you so much, Mr. Dulugabuni Philip, for crossing, for coming by and addressing some of these issues. We can hope and pray that actually government comes in with a positive response to this, because at the end of the day, it's actually affecting all of us as a nation and the education sector. Well, we do have more sports updates coming in from the man himself, that is Ruben Mpima Chividango, to give you a highlight of what has been happening in the world of sports over the weekend, and we'll be having the GMU agenda follow-up right after that. Otherwise, from me, have a wonderful and productive Monday morning. Hopefully we can be able to meet again tomorrow morning. I am Philomena Mastiko, and thank you for being with us all the way from 6:30 a.m. Good morning, Uganda.
Thank you. Morning.